After the financial success of Mafia 3, Hangar 13's head and founder Hayden Blackman was presented with a choice. Either make Mafia 4 set in 1970s Las Vegas or create an entirely new IP. Blackman chose the latter option. This would prove to be a bit of a butterfly effect moment, as it would create an 8-year cycle of floundering and an unclear direction for the studio. First, they decided to make Rhapsody, a spy thriller set in 1980s Berlin that sounds really cool. That would be dropped fairly quickly, however, instead replaced by Project Voltron, which would be a significantly less cooler co-op live service game. That too, however, would be cancelled in 2021 despite its $50 million budget. I'm going to start speculating here and say that this cancellation really hurt the studio. Not only because they'd have to start a new project from scratch, but also because due to Voltron's sizable budget, their next game would have to be both of a smaller scope and released fairly quickly. As it's been explained by the studio, Mafia the Old Country is not Mafia 4. It's probably more of a side game so Hangar 13 can get back on its feet. The last video I made on the channel was a full retrospective of the Mafia series and how it almost always was good, but not great. And I think Mafia the Old Country fits right into that description. There's a lot of things I loved about the game, but there's also so many things bringing it down. So sit back, relax, and let me show you why Mafia the Old Country is almost great. The Old Country's gameplay is surprisingly good, especially the gunplay. Being set in Sicily in the early 1900s, the game's combat is messy, but in a good way. The guns aren't particularly accurate, and you'll end up in these cinematic gunfights where both sides end up missing a lot. The controls also feel buttery smooth. Going from cover to cover feels satisfying, and the game has a pretty good logic on which cover to snap onto. This is probably the best the combat has felt out of any game of the franchise. There's also knife fighting, and you can tell a lot of thought went into it. It functions like a light version of the Arkham games where you need to parry and dodge at the appropriate times. In and of themselves, these fights are fine, but their existence is very contrived. I get that Hangar 13 needed a way for the characters to shout dramatic lines at each other, but this has the effect of being both immersion breaking and dropping each character's IQ by 30 points. Apparently, everyone in Sicily carries around a knife. I guess in the 1900s, instead of keys, wallet, phone, everyone's pockets included keys, wallet, and knife. And everybody is very eager to use that knife. Villain holds the protagonist at gunpoint? Nah, let's have a knife fight instead. Police chief gets the jump on the protagonist after he killed half of the force? Let's figure out a way to end this in a knife fight. Every single major plot point is resolved through a knife fight, and it just takes you out of the experience. The knife can also be used in stealth. Stealth in the game is fine, it exists. A lot of the times it's very scripted stealth, where there's a very clear path you need to follow, and I probably would have liked to see a bit less of it overall, but it's not the end of the world. On the flip side, driving is really fun. A race you participate in around the middle of the game is probably its highlight in terms of a pure gameplay standpoint. The problem that I have with driving doesn't even have to do with the mechanic itself. It's the world that you're driving in that's a bit problematic. Sicily is beautiful to look at and acts as a great backdrop to immerse you into the world. It's also not as fun to drive in compared to other Mafia games. In those other games, driving towards objectives was a minigame on its own. You had to either obey traffic laws or be on the lookout for the police if you wanted to break them. But since nobody really owned a car in the 1900s, you just drive around mostly empty roads, which is realistic, but a bit of a downgrade. As is tradition nowadays with the Mafia games, there's nothing to do in Sicily. Knowing the game's development cycle, I won't really hold that against it though. So the gameplay mostly ranges from great to okay depending on what you're doing, and that's par for the course for a Mafia game. The thing that always carried this franchise was the story, and it's really good here as well. I'm a big story guy in games. I can overlook a lot of bad or below par things for a game if the story is good enough, and the story here is more than good enough. There is a caveat though, you have to get past the first 4 missions. I'm sorry, but the first 2 hours of the game are terrible. You play as Enzo, a mine worker living in terrible conditions who escapes and reluctantly gets picked up by the Mafia. He then proceeds to rise up through the ranks, and I think you know the drill by now. The game goes through great pains to show the hardships Enzo faces. First through the inhumane treatment he gets at the mines, and then the distrust from his fellow mafiosos. He never gets given any responsibility, and when he does, it's usually to carry around heavy stuff. The problem here being that the game is too good at conveying this hardship. It's rough to play through, and there's barely any gameplay. It's like watching The Godfather, but while being forced to hold your left stick forward. The biggest culprit in all of this is the one gameplay mechanic we didn't talk about yet: horse riding. It's miserable. In other games with horses, there's usually a stamina meter to keep you from getting bored. It's not the best thing in the world, but it gets the job done. In the old country, this doesn't exist, so you're just stuck holding the left stick forward and occasionally get a speed boost when the game allows you to. I could name so many things better than horse riding in this game, and one of those things is subscribing if you're enjoying the video. Not my smoothest segue, I'll admit, but these videos do take a lot of time, and it's the only way to support the channel. Back to the video. There's also a lot of wallowing in Mafia 1's footsteps in the beginning. The mechanic you meet gets introduced by bumping his head on a car. You go on a collection mission that goes wrong, and you have to walk with and protect the love interest from harm. It's when the game's story pulls away from Mafia 1 that it really gets going. While the baseline of the story is fairly standard, it has 2 differentiating factors that make it stand out. One is the forbidden love between Enzo and the Don's daughter, Isabella. It's the driving force behind the plot, and it's really well done. It's genuinely well written, and the chemistry between the 2 characters is tangible. You want to see them together, you want to see them get their happy ending, and whenever that's threatened, it's riveting stuff. The other thing the old country does well is the characters in general. The villains are a bit on the generic side, but everybody in the family has a distinct personality that bounces off every other character really well. There isn't a weak performance here. Every actor did a stellar job, elevating tenfold what could have been a run-of-the-mill story. This game is kind of the reverse Mafia 3, where Mafia 3 has an incredibly strong start and fizzles out as it progresses. The old country starts off poorly and crescendos to its much anticipated climax. Okay, we have to talk about the ending. Skip to this timestamp if you don't want spoilers, and I'd really urge you to do so because I do think it's a story worth experiencing. Alright, I'm making this up right now as I go, but I do believe that when any form of media has a tragic ending, it can be split between 2 categories: a sad ending and a deflating ending. The only thing differentiating the 2 being how earned the tragic ending feels. I love a good sad ending. I can't give you examples because spoilers, but I'll very happily take a sad ending if the story calls for it. A deflating ending, on the other hand, can really dampen an experience. I did not expect Enzo and Isabella to get their happy ending. It was a near impossibility, but the way Enzo's death was handled leaves a lot to be desired. So in the final mission of the game, Enzo tries to escape Sicily with Isabella. They get caught right before entering the train, and Enzo is led to the mines he used to work at in order to be killed for betraying the family. So far so good. After stuff happens, he is forced to fight against his former best friend and the Don's nephew Cesare. He beats him, but crucially lets him live. Mount Etna then erupts, and then the game does that trope that I hate where a natural catastrophe is happening, but the enemies are still trying to kill you. More stuff happens, and you end up killing the Don himself. Cesare sees you, extends his hand, hugs you, apologizes, and kills you with his knife. That's a very deflating ending. It gets to the correct result, but it happens in a way that makes Enzo look like an idiot. He hadn't trusted Cesar with his secret the entire game, but out of all the times, now he decides to hug it out? There were so many more interesting ways to take out Enzo that don't make him instantly lose all his brain cells. Make him have a last stand where he's just too outnumbered. I don't know, anything but let himself get betrayed by the man that was trying to kill him 5 minutes ago. I don't think it ruins the overall experience, but man did it leave a bitter taste in my mouth. Anyways, since you're here, here's a very spoilery glitch I encountered. Overall, I had a good time with the old country. 2K proved me wrong, it's a lot easier to recommend with a reduced price tag. It's not a masterpiece or a groundbreaking experience, but it's a fun Mafia story told really well. And sometimes that's all I can ask for. Thank you for watching this video. I know I said it last time, but definitely the next video will be on Concord, so stay tuned if you're interested in that. You can click here to watch the entire retrospective of the Mafia games, and until then, I'll see you in the next one.